Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto was the true son of the Medusa? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the NeonZangetsu for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. A smiling monster. I've always been a bit of a glutton. Aren't we all though? We all want to have a good life. We all want what we want. We crave. We need. It's human nature. The threshold of desire to crave that which we don't have and more of what we do. You see, I wanted to have it all. A perfect ending. A world where everyone lives. Where all my comrades survived. Is that selfish of me, I wonder? Or hopeful to the point of lunacy? At the end of the day, I wanted. I sought. I craved. Is that wrong? I hardly got an answer in my first life. I screwed up, landed in this world, tried to find my way back, and then I died. I died and I died and I died over and over again. But death didn't stick. I survived through the ages. Almost like that blasted snake of Akasha, though for me always my body was the same. Looking for the culmination of my wants, one perfect wish, a chance to undo everything that went wrong. I'll kill to have it, drown the planet in an ocean of blood. Does that sound cruel of me? Maybe it is. After Ali already came this far. What's a few more bodies on the pile? I'm not a bad guy. Really, I'm not. I don't take any pleasure in mowing my enemies down, but I will win. I have to win, to undo my mistake, to fix my world, to win. Ryder opened her eyes. Existence asserted itself with a sudden awareness that seemed oddly banal for the fallen goddess. Even as the great cloud of smoke that heralded her summoning began to break apart into its constituent mana, she could see it all, though her eyes remained obscured. Just as any proper servant could see in their spiritual forms even without eyes to see, so too was she keenly aware of the light breeze fluttering the violet curtain of her hair at the heels of her boots. Light faded. The last dregs of mana in the magic circle lost their power, their job done, and yet something wasn't right. She found herself in a forest, motes of moonlight blue light floating around her like dying fireflies before they guttered and died, illuminating her to little more to her own state, standing alone, her brow furrowed beneath her blindfold. Yes, something was certainly amiss. Though it did not show on her stunning visage, Ryder took a moment to take stock of her situation. She intrinsically knew her class from the moment of her summoning, of her skills and state, from her long-toned legs and athletically buxom body to the texture of the leather dress clinging to her. The clink of a chain and stake in her right hand tinkled in her ear, mentally affirming her state as a rider. Good. She had no desire to wield the scythe that killed her as a lancer, nor the wings of her monstrous avenger form. However, there was something still missing, some key information lacking in her summoning. Oh? A man's voice pierced the gloom. Looks like it worked. Guess that mage wasn't lying after all. Her ears perked up as turned towards he who had spoken. Then it clicked. Her master. When a summoning was performed, a servant would come into the world with some meager measure of her summoner. Yet while a wellspring of potent mana flowed into her along a perfectly constructed magical path, Ryder found could not begin to fathom who it was coming from. Sharpening her perception, she rose on bent knee and confirmed her suspicions. She glimpsed a bloody corpse sprawled not a yard away from her summoning circle. A man in his late 20s by the look of him, his skin a caramel brown and hair sandy blonde, once pristine shirt and waistcoat stained with the blood of an open throat. Clutched in his hand lay a sanguine red stone, like petrified blood glinting in the light of the gibbous moon high above. I'm so glad you answered my call. Someone stepped into the dim light. Really, it would have been such a drag if I had to do this again. Ryder took him in at a glance. He looked normal enough, face normal, if one ignored the whiskered cheeks. Eyes normal, too. His clothes were simple black boots with matching khakis, a dark navy shirt over which he'd thrown a loose gray overcoat, spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, whiskered cheeks, a birthmark of some sort? Anyone else would have passed him by on the street and thought nothing of him. Her eyes saw deeper. There was power in him. Strength that went beyond mere mana. Something deep. Dark. It was both from him and that thing that she received her power. And what a power it was! She felt full, satiated in ways she hadn't been for ages. What wash? No, that didn't matter. She steeled herself, pushing her musings to the side, and addressed him in a stoic yet lilting voice. Are you my master? She'd suspected the answer already, but if she was to exist for any more than a day, she would have to seal the contract and gain an anchor to the world. Though her master was handsome, there was something wrong within him. His smile was just a bit too sharp, his smile bright, almost eerily so, lending his grin a manic quality. That I am. I'm so glad this worked. He clapped his hands, whiskered cheeks dimpling in mirth. Killing that mage was worth it after all. Her gaze drifted to his right hand. Command spells lay etched over the back of it, forming a tight spiral. Seeing them, she felt her existence anchored to the here and now. Ryder exhaled a barely audible snort at such a barefaced admittance of murder. What a troublesome master she had. He might not even be sane. The lunatics were always the most annoying to deal with. So confident, so self-assured, so invincible in their arrogance. Hopefully this one at least had his wits about him. Would you mind telling me your class, Servant Ryder? She responded laconically. I have answered your summons. Ryder, huh? He thumbed his chin. There's some irony in that. All right. His head bobbed in a slow nod. Guess that works. I was hoping for someone like you. You seem strong. Here at last, Ryder allowed herself a smirk. He didn't know the half of it. She felt strong. The indulgence was more for her than her master, but she couldn't help herself. It felt like she was filled by a raging torrent of power, a roaring white river compared to the slow-moving brooks that she half remembered from the throne. So much mana. Oh gods. She could get drunk on this. That said, he frowned at her, distracting her once more. Take that ridiculous blindfold off. Realization dawned, shattering her reverie. He meant her breaker gorgon. Foolish indeed. I would not recommend it. Please don't make me use a command spell. His voice was soft, but it carried weight all the same. This was not a request she could refuse. Ryder held his gaze with her unseen eyes for a second, trying to comprehend such foolishness. Had she overestimated his understanding of her ability? Or was he truly that foolish? She considered warning him again, then thought better of it. If he wished to perish, so be it. Slowly reaching a hand up behind her head, she traced her nail across the hidden latches at the back of the blindfold. She heard a pair of sharp clicks before its pressure around her head fell slack. Her blindfold hit the floor. Medusa opened her eyes, jeweled Sibylle-bearing square pupils fluttering open beneath long lashes. They always itched a little when she first opened them. Reluctantly she raised her head, her gaze drilling apologetically into her master's baffled blue. He seemed surprised somehow, hoping his whiskered face would not morph into horror as it transmuted unto stone. Beautiful. Ryder's heart kicked against her chest. Beautiful? How could he say such a thing? She was far too tall. Unsightly even, not at all like her sisters, was she. How could anything about her be remotely construed as beautiful? Ahem. Her master coughed into a fist, quickly pretending he hadn't said anything. Mystic eyes, eh? He said with interest. That's certainly something. For the shadow of a moment Ryder saw the beginnings of her purple mana begin to envelop his silhouette, ready to reduce him to a statue. No warning would save him now. Such would be his fate, the fate of all who she looked upon with her unsealed eyes. None could resist it. Imagine her surprise then, when a corona of white light exploded around her master, rebuffing the curse like shattering glass. All the while he held her gaze, taking the measure of her now shocked eyes. His head tilted a little, considering her curiously. No doubt he felt something just now, but if he had, he didn't remark upon it. Medusa recoiled. That shouldn't be possible. Even high-level magic resistance would fail to completely shut out her mystic eyes of petrification. Yet some power, something infernally divine, a felt presence that even now retreated into the blonde's body, had rejected her curse so completely that now all she could do was look at him as his simile began to warm. That's much better. This grin seemed more genuine somehow. If we're going to work together, we should see eye to eye. Was he making a joke? Her lips twitched. That is a horrible pun. He only laughed. Then why are you smiling? Maybe her master was mad after all, and madness was contagious. In any case, I'm Naruto. The bemused blonde offered her his hand. Nice to meet you. Any chance you'd be willing to tell me your real name? Might make things easier going forward. His palm hung there. Medusa didn't take it. She absolutely did not dare. She trusted before back when she was among the living. It was better this way. Better for him to use her and her to use him. Simple, clean. No attachments. She mustn't get attached. She refused to get attached. That's fair. Though his hand eventually fell, his smile didn't waver. We've just met and all. Maybe I pushed a little too hard. Sorry, he certainly had. Yet he'd seen that, recognized it, and made amends. You certainly are a bold one. Ryder, you don't know the half of it. He smiled, acting as he hadn't just done the impossible. So? Who should we fight first? The quiet chirping of crickets filled the night once more. Even then it took Medusa a few seconds to recompose herself enough, and realize she'd been asked another odd question. You seek my advice? She frowned at him. I thought you were meant to be the master of this relationship. My feelings do not matter. I am, and they do. Naruto nodded, twiddling his thumbs idly. I'm also a rookie when it comes to this magic business. You know this whole servant thing better than I do. Fair. Her mind racked to and fro, considering their options. It had been some time since she'd last been summoned. Even then she knew the classes. Saber. Archer. Lancer. Caster. Assassin. And Rider, of course, given she belonged to said class in this incarnation. In theory it should be possible to summon other classes to replace the 6, though that would require some meddling on a master's part. Rider? She blinked slowly, drawn from her thoughts. I would suggest seeking out the Saber class then. As she was now, she felt she could put up a decent fight against such a superior class. Her master blinked. Is that one the strongest? Traditionally. Good. It's been a while since I had a real fight. His rueful chuckle echoed hollowly in the clearing, the still cooling corpse by his side evidenced that violence did not faze him. I'll do my best to assist ya. His words rattled Ryder. You intend to fight with me? Yup. He smacked his lips, producing an audible pop. I may not look it, but I can throw down with the best of them. Sides, what kind of a master would I be if I made you do everything? Here at last her temper slipped its leash. A normal one. I haven't been normal for a while, now. Ryder saw through his brevity, glimpsed the truth in his word. There was a sadness in this one, a sadness that bordered on madness. Here was a soul who had died their hand against her better judgment. She began to feel an old and foreign feeling well up in her chest when she thought about this strange creature standing before her. Pity. You're a little broken, aren't you? Ha! She wasn't prepared for Naruto's smile. It was a pure, sad thing, so miserably mirthful that it almost made her weep. I've always been this way. I'm just not hiding it anymore. As you say, I do say. He laughed and walked past her. Come on. Let's get you something to eat. Food? Ryder's brow furrowed, pale eyes flashing in confusion with the absence of her blindfold. I do not require sustenance. Yet, she let the word go unspoken. She could feed on the blood of the unsuspecting if need be. She'd rather it not come to that. But you can eat a meal, can't you? Naruto craned his neck back to look at her, eyes half-lidded in mirth. I'll take you back to my place. Been a while since I had guests and all, but I'm one hell of a cook. What a madman of a master she had. For lack of any other option, Ryder followed him. The gods had undoubtedly cursed her. There was no denying that. But here, now, Medusa could see it. He'd been cursed, too. By what, she knew not, only that he had. This was a smiling monster, just like her. A familiar smile, interlude. What does it take to warp a man? A little bit of pain, pinch of failure, a dash of trauma spiced with forlorn hope and the broken promise of a better tomorrow. Throw these things together, and you have a perfect recipe for utter disaster. A heady cocktail capable of utterly shattering even the strongest spirit. Naruto knew it better than most. The mind was a powerful thing, yet also terribly fragile. Sometimes all it took was one bad day to turn your world inside out. He considered himself a fortunate sort in that regard. He'd had his bad day and survived it. He wouldn't let failure stop him, rather, he couldn't. For the sake of the past. For the present. For the future. He'd survived things that would kill most men, seen unspeakable horrors, and lived to tell the tale. Some might call that a victory, but it wasn't a true victory, wouldn't be his victory, until he reclaimed everything he'd lost. Yes, he'd suffered, but he couldn't give in to madness. Not yet, no matter how much he might wish to. There would be time enough for that latter. Revenge was a dish best served cold. His would be a blizzard, but first he had to find his prey. There were 6 servants to slay, and he'd finally found the trail of one. Now that night had fallen once more, he was certain their prey would be out and about. After all, one could hardly have a grand battle in the middle of the day with witnesses or worse wandering around. If his suspicions were correct, and he knew they were, someone was hunting them right now. Where are we going? Wise of Ryder to ask. Medusa had a good head on her shoulders, laconic though she could be. Suppose that's a fair question. He turned his head, regarding the abandoned park before him. Even after all these years the place still stank of death. Mana has a certain stench about it. All mages do. He sniffed again for emphasis, scenting the wind. After all these years, I know it by heart. He reached up and over and around, following a trail only his eyes could see. It was so simple, really, like a little red ribbon just waiting for him to reach out and tug on it. Mages, servants, all of you have it, and although I'd rather prefer to kill the servants than the masters, I can sense them all the same. My, I didn't expect you to have a proper set of morals. Morals have nothing to do with it. He glowered at her out of the corner of his eye. It's practicality. How so? Her gaze met his, a pale brow quirking above her beautiful eyes. A man could get lost in a gaze like that. He'd never understand why she insisted on wearing that blindfold of hers. Granted, she could turn an unguarded warrior to stone if they weren't properly prepared, but what was life without a little risk? Simple. He pivoted and reached out to cup her cheek in his palm. She didn't flinch. Good. It's no fun killing sheep. Medusa tilted her head. You'd limit yourself for such a reason? To an extent. What about you? He met her stare evenly, unblinking, until she finally looked away. You mustn't stare at me like that. He didn't miss the faint hint of pink in her cheeks. I won't be able to help myself. She really was just too easy to tease, wasn't she? Do you still need more mana? That's all right, Ryder. He unbuttoned his collar for her, reveling in the slight widening of her bewitching gaze. Take as much as you want. Her eyes snapped to his. Drifted lower now, lingering upon his lips. She took a step forward before she caught herself. Naruto's smile grew. Score 1 point for him. That won't be necessary. She looked away with a lurch. I'm not hungry, yet. He catcalled at her back. She stiffened. Brute, maybe. He clasped both hands behind his head. But I'm the brute that summoned ya, so you'll have to put up with me for now and our guest. He looked past the tree. You can stop hiding now. He called out to them. I can sense ya, TCH. A low voice chortled softly. And here I thought you hadn't noticed me. A man clad in blue and silver armor emerged, with wild azure hair and piercing red eyes to match. Impressive spear he had there. Medusa perked up beside him, conjuring a spike to one hand. Lancer, I presume? Got in one, missy? Suppose I should ask which one of you is the servant, but it's probably her. His gaze glided over to Medusa. You look weak, buddy. A muscle jumped in Naruto's jaw. Weak, hm? All right. I'll play. Dodge. Lancer blinked. Dodge wa. Clenched knuckles barreled into his face and launched him through a tree. 0.0.0.0. Medusa finally understood now. Her master was broken. Then again, so was she. If he was willing to fight on the front lines, then who was she to stop him? She lunged after him. And there was glorious combat. Needless to say, Lancer did not have a good time. Not at all. Bare your fangs. Naruto's breath came steady and sure, yet with it he could feel the sharp pulse of adrenaline in his veins. Pale moonlight crept through the trees, glinting on the tip of Lancer's crimson spear as he stood a dozen paces away. Between them lay empty ground, the only witness to the challenge unfolding. To his left, Medusa Rider waited in stillness. Even bound by her blindfold and standing at ease, she radiated quiet confidence. He risked a quick glance at her. He recognized the subtle tension in her shoulders, the slight narrowing of her eyes beneath the cloth now that she donned her blindfold once more. She was ready, more than ready. Then again, so was he. He'd been looking forward to his. Oh, now? That was a cheap shot. Did you really think that would take me out? Across the empty clearing, Lancer climbed back to his feet and shifted his stance. The ancient Irish hero smiled, a flash of sharp teeth and wild excitement. He loved this. Lived for it. The gleam in his eyes was palpable, mirroring his own eagerness. The cool air lay tinged with the coppery scent of metal and the earthy dampness of the forest, but it was the thrill of battle that dominated Naruto's senses. In that moment, nothing existed beyond the three of them, and the space between. I'd be disappointed if it did. Naruto drew in another breath and cracked his knuckles. He could feel the coarse weight of chakra swirling in his muscles, and it steadied him. Not gonna bust your noble phantasm? Lancer lazily twirled his spear. Nah, not yet. You've gotta earn that. His smile died an ugly death. Is that so, Master? Medusa said quietly, voice firm even under her anticipation. I believe he's insulting us. Sure sounds like it. He made sure she heard him. He needed no encouragement from her, but she was someone he trusted implicitly. They had fought together before, and he felt an unspoken bond with his rider. They communicated with glances, gestures, a language of movements developed through countless shared battles. Just for that, she won't use her noble phantasm either. He shot back. Sound fair? Lancer tooted. Awfully honorable for a sneaky bastard. Naruto shrugged in return. Meh, I like my fights. Indeed. He's a most foolish master. Oh, rider! That was cruel. Medusa inclined her head only slightly to hide her smile, pale hair swaying behind her. Behind the blindfold, her eyes remained obscured. Wouldn't do for her to reveal her identity to an enemy servant just yet, but Naruto had come to learn that her senses were far sharper than a normal person's. She had centuries of experience reading opponents. With a small, almost imperceptible grin, she squeezed her hand on the hilt of her chained weapon, fingers cool against the steel coil wrapped around her. That chained coil spike was as much a part of her as her hair or eyes. It shimmered gently as she shifted her grip, ready to lash out at a moment's notice. Lancer called out in a broad accent, loud and confident, Heh! Then this is perfect, two seasoned fighters facing me together. I'll make it a fight to remember. Ready when you are. His voice carried across the clearing, echoing slightly in the morning stillness. The gleam of challenge in his eye was unmistakable. He clearly had a penchant for pushing fighters to their limits, and now their two opponents willing to rise to that standard. Naruto cracked a grin at Lancer's boasts. He liked Lancer, in a twisted way, respected him as a fierce warrior. But his time had come. For his dream, the blue bastard had to die. Simple as that. Ready, he answered, voice low but clear. He shifted forward on the balls of his feet, sliding into a natural fighting stance. He didn't know why Lancer had decided to face them together. Most might have balked at the idea of facing a master with their servant, but he sensed it might have to do with the mission at hand. Perhaps they were blocking Lancer from interfering in something critical. Or maybe he was just fixing for a fight. Either way, he felt the familiar resolve settle in him. This was gonna be fun. Medusa gave no verbal response. She had no need. She inhaled slowly, as though approving Naruto's readiness. Lancer let loose a hearty laugh. We do this together then. He hefted his long red spear, spinning it elegantly around his body. Despite the casual joy in his voice, Naruto could sense Lancer's speed and skill were anything but casual. He was a veteran, a true hero, and he knew any slight opening could be catastrophic if left unguarded. Naruto tensed, feeling a familiar heat behind his eyes. The nine-tailed chakra hummed beneath his skin, but he pushed it down. Today, he would rely on skill rather than raw power. He kept his movements calm and deliberate. They needed control more than wild fury. The first move came as if on cue. Lancer lunged forward in a blur of red. His spear moved in a deadly arc toward Naruto's head. He ducked under the strike, stepping 1 foot back to narrow distance. He could feel the wind as the blade whistled inches from his face. Lancer's muscles shifted in a graceful, practiced motion that spoke of thousands of battles. He saw the gleam in Lancer's eye as he twisted, expecting Naruto to evade. Behind him, Medusa whispered softly, "Now." Naruto nodded without turning. He had mastered the coordination to follow her lead by now. As Lancer swung the spear a second time, he leapt forward. His body became a blur of orange and black. In the same instant, Medusa's silver chain spike lashed out from behind Naruto. The deadly weapon chain cracked through the air, wrapping around Lancer's ankle like a serpent mid-strike. Lancer snapped his spear back to guard, eyes widening in surprise as Medusa's chain whip cinched him off balance. His leg jerked by the force, but he recovered with the grace of a seasoned dancer. "Heh," he growled, shrugging the chain off one foot with a powerful kick. "Nice try, Rider. But you'll have to do better than that." Naruto alighted in a pointed crouch, crouching to gather his chakra. He didn't have time to gloat. The fight had only just begun. Already he felt the burn of satisfaction. He had drawn Lancer's attention away, even if only for a moment, allowing Medusa's strike to take hold. Medusa shifted silently. Naruto could hear the soft jingle of her whip coils on the grass as she retrieved them, flicking them out of sight. The pairing of their attack worked well. They had begun to catch Lancer off guard. Now it was time to keep the pressure. Naruto braced himself and charged at Lancer again. This time he wasn't alone. From the shadows behind him, two perfectly identical clones sprang forth, mimicking his movement. The three Narutos flitted around Lancer in perfect synchrony. The original soon became indistinguishable from the blurring clones. He smiled despite the seriousness of the fight. He had pulled this trick many times, but the magic never got old. Here at last he couldn't help but taunt him. "What's wrong? Need me to slow down?" Lancer measured them carefully. 3 Narutos, each at the ready. He scoffed, spinning his spear as a warning to deflect an attack that would have pierced his back. 100 copies won't save you, he taunted, moving with lightning speed. The real Naruto wove to the left, one clone sprinted to the right, and the other shot straight at Lancer's front. The middle clone threw a flurry of punches, which Lancer parried with the shaft of his spear. The clone hopped back, instantly replaced by another, who advanced. The real Naruto and the remaining clones circled to flank him, trapping Lancer in a 3-pronged assault. Naruto dashed in, fists charged with crackling blue chakra. He feinted a low kick and then launched upward with a spinning kick. Lancer sidestepped, and Naruto's kick met only fresh air and a tuft of grass where Lancer had been moments before. At that exact beat, Medusa made her move. She whirled her chained whip upward, the steel links humming. Like a flash, the coil wrapped around Lancer's spear arm. With a smooth yank, she wrenched the spear from his grip in one fluid motion, sending it clattering into the dirt far behind. Lancer staggered from the disarmament, momentarily off balance. His wide grin flickered with surprise. Gi-Bulb was his prized weapon. Without it, he would be at a disadvantage. Naruto's eyes widened with satisfaction and concern at once. Gratifying as that move was, it meant Lancer would likely resort to something desperate. But he didn't have time to savor the moment. Medusa's whip had not just yanked the spear out. It had pinned Lancer's arm across his chest in a cross-section of steel and muscle. Lancer struggled, trying to throw off her chain. The 2 Narutos flanking him closed in, fists crackling with chakra, preparing to strike. The real Naruto surged forward, momentum behind him, ready to deliver a decisive blow to the back of Lancer's knee. Lancer threw his weight off the ground, twisting with inhuman agility. He used Medusa's chain as a pivot to spin away, using the momentum to break free. As he uncoiled from her chain, he lashed out. A blur of motion, his leg snapped out and met Naruto's advancing foot. The kick struck hard in Naruto's side and sent him skidding across the grass. Pain blazed along his ribs, but he grinned through it. This was Lancer's fight too, after all. He still had at least 2 clones in the mix, and Medusa at his side. Medusa, seeing Naruto thrown aside, darted between the clones and Lancer like a coiling snake. Her chains glittered in the sun, golden scales flashing as she moved. She swung one coil at Lancer's other leg, trying to truss him up, but Lancer jumped back nimbly. There was laughter in his eyes and voice. He relished every ounce of this, just like Naruto did. Naruto tumbled to his feet, toothed once, and dusted himself down. Faster than he seems. Good. Means this won't be boring. Battles were meant to be memorable, after all. Careful, rider, he called out. He's faster than he seems. He's powerful too, Medusa whispered evenly as she circled him. Watch for a feint. In her calm tone Naruto could detect no hesitation. Was she truly unfazed, or simply an expert at hiding it? Years of training must have taught her to maintain that serene composure. She looked more like a dancer mid-performance than a battle-scarred servant. Her long hair swirled and flicked with her steps. The hem of her robe rippled as she moved with lithe grace. To an outside observer, she may have appeared unnervingly tranquil in the middle of combat. Naruto nodded to himself. Even without speech, he understood. They fell silent for a heartbeat, eyeing Lancer. They knew he was dangerous, but this was their match, their concert. With a battle cry, Lancer leapt back into action. He snatched up his fallen spear and pivoting forward. You'll have to do better than that, he howled. With a warrior's flourish, he flung the spear overhead in a broad arc, snapping down at the real Naruto who was charging forward again. Naruto's next thought flicked to Gibalg. The cursed spear was legendary. Lancer could use it to strike directly at his heart if he pierced him properly. Moreover, a wound inflicted by that weapon wouldn't heal easily. He might even be able to kill him with it. As such, Hai's muscles reacted instantly. He brought his forearm up, encasing his face as the swirling spearhead slammed into it. The impact was like standing in the path of a tornado. His vision blurred and star spots danced, but he barely even tasted blood. He rocketed backward through the trees, flipping in midair. Grass exploded beneath his feet as he landed safely a dozen yards away. The clone skittered back as well, reforming into him, leaving no doubts. Naruto's lip curled in a grimace as he inhaled sharply through his teeth. He had felt the sheer force of Gibalg. The spear was faster than he'd expected, a purplish aura still lingering on its shaft, chanting its own grim promise. Lancer twisted to parry the clone's next moves, eyes locking on Naruto. There was admiration in that look. Not bad, Lancer said through gritted teeth, the barest tone of challenge in his voice. Not bad at all. But how long can you last, given he was holding back? Naruto wiped sweat and dust from his brow with a rueful chuckle. Long enough, he thought. That's my line. He laughed, spinning on a heel to drive himself forward. He thrust a hand forward as he went, molding chakra in midair. A silvery blue Rasengan blossomed in his palm. From the side, the chains of one of Medusa's weapons flicked up and lashed at Lancer's arm in a coordinated attack. For an instant, Lancer had to focus on blocking the energetic attack and the spinning chakra ball in one combined motion. As Naruto's Rasengan drilled into his side, Medusa's chain uncoiled to wrap around his other arm, its spikes slamming southward to slam into his thigh. Lancer roared in equal parts surprise and pain as both attacks landed at once. He staggered as the Rasengan's force hammered into him, and for a moment Naruto thought he'd succeeded in a savage gut punch. But Lancer's training took over. Before he could land a second blow, Lancer lurched away, wrenched his arm free with a grunt of effort, and somersaulted backward to regain his footing. Naruto's Rasengan fizzled in midair and vanished. Medusa disengaged quickly as Lancer backed away to shake off the charm of surprise. Where Naruto had expected all-out defense and counterattack, Lancer surprised him again with a grin. Blood was already staining the edge of Lancer's tunic, and there was a sharp, shallow gash on his side, courtesy of Naruto's Rasengan. But Lancer only laughed, and it was wide-eyed joy, not rage. You're strong! Lancer shouted. Bright red eyes gleamed. This is it. The real fight. You've got spirit, both of you. Naruto took a breath and felt the urgency. Each word from Lancer brought him closer to another deadly lunge. Naruto barked, yeah? Then come and get it. Medusa had quietly recovered and circled around them. Naruto didn't expect words from her, but once in a long while, she did speak softly through their telepathic link. Master, flank left when you strike. I'll take right. Naruto needed no further persuasion. He sprinted forward again, clumping boots on the earth. He pumped chakra to his legs to augment his speed. His orange jacket flapped as he raced. Two clones burst into view a moment later, one from behind him, one from the side, cutting off Lancer's retreat. Lancer's grin remained, though the hint of caution flickered in his gaze. He was in danger of being swarmed from multiple directions. With fluid reflexes, he spun his spear around like a wheel. Naruto dove low under the whirling shaft. One clone leapt up to kick high, another rolled forward to jab a punch. Lancer caught the clone's fist on his spear in a blur. He swung the shaft, sending the clone smashing into the ground. The clone turned to smoke and vanished with a burst of chakra, just a shadow of afterimages. Naruto was crouched, still outflanked. He let out a roar and shot straight at Lancer, aiming to strike the spear out of his hands. Lancer met him head-on. The two collided in a swirl of orange and red. Naruto's chakra flared outward, crackling blue-white light, while Lancer's own aura burned bright, the color of a hero's battle charge. Naruto threw a right hook. Lancer barely blocked with his forearm and elbow, but it still stung him back. He retaliated immediately, pivoting and throwing a roundhouse kick at Naruto's chest. Naruto stumbled backward, breath knocked out of him by the force. For a half-second, he lost the spear for a view. Then, with almost uncanny precision, he snagged it between his hands as Lancer whirled. In an instant he found himself holding Lancer's beloved spear. He felt both accomplishment and a moment of panic. Gripping the blood-slick shaft, he realized this was Lancer's trump card, quite possibly his noble phantasm at that. It felt heavy and strange in his hands, like holding the heartbeat of battle itself. Kuchulin's gaze widened in shock, followed by blazing fury. "Hands off!" he growled, launching himself at Naruto with all of his might. He punched forward desperately, scissoring his legs and driving in a double elbow strike to knock Naruto out of the way. He took the hit full in the chest. Air filled his lungs like a rail spike and the spear flew from his grasp. The spear spun out of control and embedded itself tip down in the dirt between them. Naruto tutted and slid several feet before falling to one knee, winded. He didn't have time to stand. Already, Lancer was advancing, stepping between him and the dirt-crusted spear. Lancer dusted off his gauntlet, eyes wild with blood-pumping intensity. "That does it." Every word was a growl. "You're dead." Naruto sucked in air, quickened it. His heart hammered. He's gonna try something, maybe run, or strike as quickly as possible. He forced himself calm, steeling himself. This was all part of the plan, after all. Lancer tore his spear free, causing it to crackle with crimson light. "Let's see you escape this one." His arm tensed, ready to throw. From the corner of his eye, Naruto saw Medusa appear behind Lancer in a swirl of her robe and uncoiling chains. She had moved with stealth, nearly silent except for the faint jingle of her chains. Lancer sensed her approach, aborted his noble phantasm and spun, dodging the dagger-like chains lashing out in every direction. Clangs sounded as the chains struck a nearby tree and rock, many just missing their mark. Somewhere between one strike and the other, she deliberately let her own chains catch on her blindfold, yanking it away to expose her eyes. Revealed to the world, mystic eyes pulsed with power, not enough to render him stone, not quite, but enough to slow him. Lancer swore, stunned for a moment. "Shit! You had an ace up your sleeve after all." Naruto seized that moment. He knew Medusa would keep Lancer busy momentarily. He blitzed Lancer's left side, slipping between two flailing loops of the whip that missed by inches. The ground bore half impressions of his footfalls as he ran. He could almost feel Lancer's breath on his back, quick and hot. He leapt, grabbing Lancer's left shoulder and hauling himself onto the back of the Irish hero. A grunt of surprise tore from Lancer's throat as Naruto locked one arm around his neck from behind. With his free hand, he pumped chakra into his palm and rammed it backward into Lancer's spine. Lancer bucked, cried out, trying to shake him off. To no avail. His Naruto's hold was iron. The world blurred from Lancer's perspective. He only saw the glint of orange mask and felt brute strength straining against his own. Naruto twisted, pushing with all his might. In the same moment, a shadow clone one he'd kept hidden all this time struck his exposed side. Blood spattered the green grass. The original Naruto tumbled off Lancer's back and onto the ground behind him, only to spring upward again and strike from the opposite side. His momentum carried Lancer forward, still twisting. The two Narutos on either side had cut Lancer off, completely flanking him. Medusa's chains now had no target. Naruto knew exactly what to do next. In a motion sharper than lightning, he ripped a short kunai off his shin guard and held it firmly at hand. Chakra coated the blade, sharpening it, giving it the extra inch of penetration it would need. He bounded forward. Lancer backhanded the shadow clone, destroying it in a single blow, but that mere moment of distraction was all he needed. He whirled too late, realizing what Naruto intended. His eyes showed a mixture of admiration, fear, and disbelief in one glance. Lancer chuckled. "You're no a normal human, are yak?" His voice cut off with a strangled grunt as Naruto ducked under his swing and drove the dagger directly into Lancer's side. The spear that had been mortared into the dirt snapped back out of the ground as Naruto's force reverberated through it. It clattered aside. Lancer's eyes bulged as he sensed the knife's blade pressing into him, but he was an experienced soldier. He didn't fully panic yet. He tried to spin away and wrenched the blade out. Two strong chakra arms of Naruto gripped Lancer's shoulder, almost as if an invisible force held him steady. Naruto filled the final drop of strength into his muscle-bound hands. He turned the dagger's hilt gently, twisting it like a key. With that twist, the metal cut straight through muscle and bone, releasing a blinding burst of crimson. Lancer staggered, a fresh wound blossoming in his gut, but still he did not fall. He coughed, a spurt of blood covering Naruto's hand. Naruto murmured through clenched teeth, "I'm sorry," even though Lancer likely couldn't hear him. His other hand pressed firmly to Lancer's heart region at the same moment, fingers sinking through torn cloth and muscle as he sought the thundering beat of a warrior's pulse. Medusa saw it too. She knew what Naruto planned as soon as his blade sank home. She tilted her head, the blindfold shifting slightly as she followed the motion with her other senses. Naruto's eyes widened. He felt it under his palm, a steady, too steady pulse in Lancer's chest. Grief for the necessity of this act surged through him. Lancer was a warrior of honor, perhaps one of the bravest he'd ever faced. But his purpose was clear. He tightened his fist, and with one savage motion, he crushed it hard. Bone cracked beneath his fingers. Lancer's face went slack in agony. For a long moment, it seemed the world held its breath as life coursed out of him. His spear fell from limp fingers onto the mud as he let out a low groan. The color drained from his face faster than Naruto's own. He trembled in Naruto's grasp, eyes unfocused, seeing something far away. For an instant, Naruto thought maybe Lancer was not gone. Maybe somehow fate would prevent this. But then Lancer sagged. Naruto felt the warmth leave beneath his hand. He released the remains of his hold and stepped back. Lancer collapsed forward onto his hands and knees. The ground spattered as he fell face first into the dirt. Slowly, his arms fell to either side and his body went limp. Naruto stared for a heartbeat, breathing hard. He lowered himself to a knee next to Lancer, slackened shoulders. He looked at the fallen hero's back. A dark, spreading stain bloomed across his once white tunic, crimson. The sound of Medusa's whip coiling behind them sounded distant. For a moment, all that existed was Naruto and the final stillness of his foe. It was over. Naruto swallowed, fighting back the surge of conflicting emotions. Relief mixed with sorrow. Lancer had been an honorable warrior. Perhaps one of the better ones in this war. Now he was gone, another sacrifice on the altar of his ambition. Even in war, it was a heavy burden. His throat bowed. He cleared it quietly, feeling the unnaturalness of the silence settle around him. Behind him, Medusa knelt to retrieve her blindfold and donned it once more, remaining quiet. Naruto glanced over his shoulder at her. She still stood with one leg forward, chain stake coiled in her offhand. It was now tightly wound, as though it had just completed a dance. Rider's body was utterly still, and for a moment Naruto caught the faint outline of a proud, satisfied smile on her lips. She moved nothing, not even giving away any expression with her body, but Naruto met her hidden eyes as she faced him now. She dropped the whip, letting it coil on the grass beside her. Her hands were empty, relaxed at her sides. They faced each other in the aftermath, the two of them, victorious, alone in the hushed arena of the clearing. Naruto could hear his own breath slowing, matching the steady pace of the breeze blowing through the trees. The birds had fallen silent. The only sound was the settling of dust and the soft rustle of the leaves. Lancer was still on the ground, and Naruto felt a moment of pity even for an enemy. But this was war. This was the reality. He stretched his aching arms, flexing his fingers. They trembled slightly. There was a dark smear on them, Lancer's blood. Naruto tilted his head and looked at the blood on his palm, now smeared across his orange jacket. It felt cold and wet. Hard to wash off, he thought wryly, though a small part of him was serious. He had seen this before, on far more friendlier faces, and here, on Lancer, it felt sour. Naruto glanced up at Medusa again. She had followed him quietly as he straightened his back to stand, watching his reaction. Now he bent to the ground and retrieved Lancer's spear. It was covered in red flecks. He shoved it backwards into his grip, automatically testing its weight. Already, its master was beginning to dissolve. His weapon began to follow, returning to the throne with him. A shame. It would have been useful. Naruto cast it aside with a sigh. Medusa stepped closer, her pale eyes still hidden by the blindfold, glancing at his red fingers. Naruto noticed how she paused when her eyes hit his hands. For an instant, he thought he saw understanding, or something softer, in her gaze. Then she raised her chin and crossed her arms, as calm as the morning itself, though her breathing had quickened in that moment just as much as his. Naruto wiped his hands on the grass, frowning at the smears he left behind. Huh, he muttered softly, mostly to himself. Look at this, Rider, he said with a half-grin, fingers held up to her. He nearly expected her to recoil, but instead she only waited. It felt like he'd been slapped lightly, to see her expression unchanged by the gore. You know, I really didn't think he'd bleed like us. Medusa met his eyes without the slightest flinch. She only said quietly, all necessary battles leave blood. Her voice was soft but carried a certain finality. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I know. He let his hands hang by his sides. Hell of a fight, wasn't it? For a moment there was nothing to say. They stood side by side, breathing in the tranquility that followed the storm. Medusa quietly took a few steps towards him, uncaring of the bloody blades of grass at his feet. Without a word, she tilted her head up to meet his eyes. Under the blindfold, Naruto imagined her gaze was curious, or perhaps just content. She didn't speak, and he didn't mind. The tension between them had evaporated. Naruto finally gave a breathless laugh, a soft bark of amusement. You just watched me kill him, you know, he said with a crooked smile, still looking into her silent face. The corner of his mouth twitched at the corners. He found it absurd how cool she remained. You didn't even get a chance to use your noble phantasm. And that didn't bother you at all? Should it? He whistled. Wow, that's cold-blooded, even for you. Medusa's lip twitched upward in what might have been a smirk, or simply an amused raising of her cheek. She stepped even closer, until Naruto could feel the warmth of her presence. The sunlight slanted between them, dust motes swirling in the quiet air. And then, before Naruto could think another word, the space between them closed. Her hand shot out, tangling in his bright hair, as she pressed her lips to his. The contact was unexpected and electrifying. The world spun as warmth flooded Naruto's face. He blinked, caught off guard, his mouth parting reflexively. Medusa held him there, silent and firm. The kiss was brief but potent. Her lips tasted of fire and sky, of victory and something else, something tender he hadn't anticipated. His stomach flipped with surprise, delight, confusion. She ignored the blood on his jacket, unnoticed to her if she even cared. Naruto stood perfectly still. In that instant, everything was drowned in hot rush of sensation and a tangle of emotion he hadn't predicted. A battle had just ended and here she was, kissing him as thought it were nothing, like he was merely another meal for her to devour. And they called him a monster. The irony wasn't lost on him, not a jot. His body enjoyed it far, far too much to worry. Finally she broke the kiss and stepped back, leaving Naruto with slightly parted lips and the faint warmth of her breath on his own. He blinked at her face, his eyes narrow with shock and dawning amusement. For just a moment neither spoke. Naruto felt his knees weaken not from fatigue, but something else. He'd never expected thought as an epilogue to a fight. At length, he let out a breathy laugh, low and genuine. His sides ached from laughing. Oh, he managed, shaking his head, amusement in his voice. I guess that was your way of saying good job, huh? Medusa gave him a pointed look. his shirt beneath her blindfold hiding eyes, but the tilt of her head showed she found this reaction satisfying. Naruto, she said softly, in her much precise accent, did you give that man a good send-off? He touched a hand to his sweaty brow and laughed outright. Maybe, he replied with a broad grin. He wanted to go in battle, so I guess we fulfilled his wish. But you know, if we're keeping score, I woulda liked, he paused, raising a bloody finger cut, at least a bandage instead of a kiss, although he winked. I'm not complaining about the kiss. For the first time since they started fighting, he saw Medusa smile fully, her eyes creasing beneath the blindfold's fabric. The sound of her soft laughter mingled with his, echoing faintly between the trees. Naruto found that he didn't mind the taste of blood on his lips a bit. In fact, it somehow felt right. She stepped a hair closer, still holding that strange, unwavering gaze. Naruto swallowed nervously and brushed his fingers across his jaw, as if checking for any blood he might have missed. Don't tell me you were worried. Naruto spat a small glob of blood to the side and shrugged, still grinning. Nah, he said honestly. I trust you know what you're doing. It wasn't like her to do something so impulsive, a gesture of trust or closeness. But there it was, and Naruto, on the heels of watching an ally fall in battle, felt lighter than he had in days. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was adrenaline fading, or maybe it was the absurd bit of levity to balance out the gore. Medusa reached out with a quiet gentleness and ran her fingertip over the dried blood at the corner of Naruto's mouth. Ha, he chuckled, letting her. The motion felt oddly intimate. You really don't mind? She pursed her lips. You're filthy. She tried to pat his cheek with one hand, but hesitated mid-motion. There was a flicker, just once, in her posture, as if uncertain how to remove it in a way that wasn't too bold. Then she gently wiped at his cheek with the back of her hand anyway. Her fingers traced the line of blood without hesitation. Naruto just laughed and shook his head, wiping his own fingers on his other sleeve to make the point. If I clean up after this, that's just icing on the cake, he said with a grin. Medusa returned the grin with one of her rare, open ones. It looked kind and almost childlike in contrast to her usually calm mask. She extended her hand. Naruto, half expecting a sparring stance, blinked in surprise. He accepted her palm, warm and strong. She kept her hold. You handled yourself remarkably, she said quietly, voice low and sincere. We both did. Naruto stepped closer, taking both of her hands in his. We did, huh? That was a heck of a fight, he said, the adrenaline still buzzing in his veins. He glanced down at Lancer's fading form and then back to Medusa. Your idea to stun him at the end was genius. Her lips curved upward slightly at the praise. I did what I could, she replied. A quiet confidence lingered in her tone. She wiped a bit more dirt from his cheek with her thumb and smirked, showing just a hint of teeth. You, on the other hand, managed to drive your fist clean through that man. Not many can do that. Naruto puffed out his chest a little, proud. His eyes twinkled. Once I put my mind to it, he said with feigned pride, nothing stands in my way. He waggled his eyebrows. Medusa rolled her eyes, but the playful glint in her voice showed her approval. He let go of her hands and turned to look down at Lancer for a final moment. Taking one last look at the man whose heart still pulsed faintly beneath the earth, Naruto closed Lancer's eyes with a respectful hand gesture, an old ninja's way to give an enemy a proper send-off. Perhaps he'd been waiting for that, because not a moment later, the rest of him finished fading away, returning to the throne. One down, several to go. Together, Naruto and Medusa began to turn away from the fallen hero. Naruto brushed off the spot where Lancer had fallen. We should get moving, he said. The fight had ended swiftly, yes, but they were in enemy territory, and several servants remained. No telling who's watching. Let's get out of here before more come after us. He glanced at Medusa to be sure she was ready and received a nod in return. All signs of levity had vanished from her. Her every movement was purposeful as they started walking back through the trees. Naruto patted his shoulder, muscles now loosening from the intense battle. He looked at Medusa's blindfold and wondered what she saw when she took it off. The image of that must be something she held on to for a second. But she said nothing more. Naruto broke the silence. Medusa, he started, half turning to catch her eye again, thanks. His voice was casual, but the expression on his face was earnest. For watching my back today. We made a god team. Medusa's steps paused. She lifted her hand, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. The side of her mouth twitched in the faintest smile. We did well. Her words were soft, but Naruto could feel the weight of them. He grinned again. Yeah, we really did. He glanced at the rising sun beyond the treetops, painting the sky in hopeful pinks and golds. The world was waking up, and their fight was already behind them. Naruto took a deep breath, stretching out cramped muscles. Come on, he said. We should get moving. Medusa slung her whip over her shoulder like a sword in its scabbard. After you, Naruto, she teased lightly. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at that. Now you're getting cocky again, he replied, pulling the collar of his jacket tight. Blood and dirt on his clothes would have to wait until the next safe moment. For now, they pressed on. He started down the narrow path leading deeper into the forest. Medusa fell and stepped beside him, both of them silent for a few steps. Then Naruto broke into a light-hearted grin. So, he said, that's one way to thank me for clearing the room. Medusa tapped his shoulder with her whip's handle. HM? She asked, her blindfold glinting in the morning light, a hint of amusement in her tone. Naruto rolled his shoulder and smiled broader, not quite turning to see her face. Next time I slice out someone's heart, he joked with a laugh, I'll remember to expect a thank you kiss. There was laughter from Medusa at that, clear even in her quiet voice. She did not respond, but she did walk just a bit closer, confirming contact after the threat had been dealt with. Naruto gave her a sideways smirk, his bright blue eyes shining. Despite the blood and chaos only moments before, he felt almost happy. Medusa's presence and that unexpected kiss eased the weight in his chest. It was how Naruto reacted to danger and victory, with humor, relief, and a grin that seemed to say, we did it. He glanced at her profile as they walked. The blindfold, the hair, and the firm set of her jaw, somehow it seemed more serene now that the fight was finished. Naruto wondered what thoughts lurked behind those hidden eyes, but for now, he was content with the peace of this moment, and the odd companionship of his fellow monster. Medusa matched his pace, arms loose at her sides. She said softly, I suggest a day of rest. It wouldn't do to eliminate 2 servants in one night, lest we convince the others to ally against us. Naruto laughed again, the sound warm and genuine. I'll take it, he said, reaching up and pretended to put an arm around her shoulders for a moment. The motion was playful, respectful. Thanks for everything. Medusa allowed a real smile to show now. Don't thank me. You'd have done the same for me, I'm sure. Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. Maybe. He gave her a friendly nudge on the shoulder with his own. Come on, I know this neat little ramen shop that's open late. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow NeonZangetsu for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.